Tuatahi ake mihi ana ki a koe I te rangatira. 1865. Are you able to explain how the region was governed?
Really, in Tūranga here, we have a strong hapu base. And it's really the hapu base and the hapu leadership that existed in 1865. Even though today we come under our iwi collectives, the real mana and strength of each of our regions is determined by our hapu and our hapu leadership. And so it was really hapu leadership that prevailed at that time. And at Waerenga-a-Hika was a collection of hapu that have interests within that area in terms of Ngāti Kohuru, in terms of Ngāti Wāhia, in terms of Te Whānau Taupara, in terms of Te Whānau Kai, and also what is now known as Te Whānau Wipere. So those lands, Kai Rangatira, are really lands of the Wipere whānau, and in particular the Lardeli whānau. And so I acknowledge Uncle Henare Lardeli, who originally allowed us to erect a monument to mark the 150 years. I acknowledge his son Lonnie for allowing us to go through the process that we've gone through, and the special connection they have to the land and the special connection we have to them in the land. And so it was very much hapu leadership and certainly the support of whānau as a part of that hapu leadership. We were only really known by our iwi leadership when we collectivised to go outside the region. And so, yeah, it's predominantly hapu leadership that prevailed then and does today too, but not to the same extent then. Then we had a collective approach in our whenua, collective approach in the areas where we grew and collected our kai, collective approach in terms of the moana and the awa. And even though our aspirations are that, the different laws that have prevailed over the last 160 years have contributed towards destabilising that hapu leadership. But that doesn't change the fact that today we still aspire to ensure strong hapu leadership.
25 years prior to that, your rangatira had signed Te Tiriti. I mean, what was was it prominent in that community, and what was the relationship to Queen Victoria?
I would say that preceding Te Tiriti o Waitangi, you had Williams. You had a number of people that had been returned from the north, particularly into Ngāti Porou, that had been taken during the battles of that time. And so you had a working knowledge of what had been done leading up to Te Tiriti o Waitangi. And you have the views of our leadership at that time that's captured in our mōtetia in particular. So one of the signatories was Enoka Te Pakaru, renowned for composing the Waiata Pōpō, that is sung still here within Tūranganui-a-Kiwa, Ngāti Porou, within Te Whānau Apanui as well, and so strongly associated with Horauta Waka. Horauta Waka is in the lagoon Te Whero, within the rohe of Ngai Tāmanuhiri, and partially within the rohe of Rongo Whakata, below Te Kuri-a-Pāwa, in the southern end of Tūranga. And so you have an environment where they were the mana, in simple terms. And when they signed Te Tiriti o Waitangi, they were embracing of the technologies that they had seen and the opportunities to extend on what they were doing. So whether that be in the trade and the shipping business that they adapted to very well, growing food en masse for different markets, extending across to New South Wales. The reality is that it was a thriving environment, and so the leadership looked at the opportunity to embrace relationships to get into international markets, embrace technologies, new technologies that could help enhance their business development, and learn the language of trade as well. And so it was a environment where they were the mana. They were embracing those new things that they thought could help advance their people, our people. And so that was the environment. So you have Rawiri Teketu o Te Rangi, the ancestor of Charlotte Gibson and those ones, who simply signed Aira. So where people put the insignia of their moko, he said Aira. So he had great expectations, and he embraced Te Tiriti o Waitangi in 1840. So that's the environment from our perspective.
And as early settlers began to arrive on the East Coast, what do you think the response was to this rangatiratanga, this movement of motuhake?
Yeah, the reality is that we had the Harris family come here, we had other families that came here, and they normally married into our families as well. And it was mainly the traders that came into this area, along with the missionaries, of course. And there was, like I say, in the 1840s, there was an adaptation to what was being taught. There were similarities in terms of whakapono, religion. There was certainly a great desire to partner in business opportunities as well. And so that was the initial approach of learning new ways, opening new avenues to expand on business and trade. That changed hugely with the introduction of the musket. And so a lot of industry swat to growing produce that could be used to trade muskets. And so you'll see plaques around this town where it signifies that either land or produce was grown for the exchange of muskets, because that was the new environment that our people were facing at that during that time.
Would you say it was a new type of settler that was coming, and were they coming alongside perhaps more of a colonial attitudes with the likes of McLean and Grey had been in and out? Was it McLean that came first and then came back in 1855? One came in 1851, or was it Harris?
It was, well, Harris was here more in the storekeeping and trading. McLean was the one on behalf of the government. And so you see the turn of the century with the introduction of the musket, that did change things here. And a lot of the process towards the Treaty of Waitangi was about solidifying and ensuring that our position was protected. None of our rangatira would have signed if the word sovereignty was what it really means in Māori, which is mana. So no leader would give up their mana to someone else that they'd never met in another country. So 1840 was about us preserving our mana and building on that foundation to develop together and learn and accelerate our development, and particularly in business and in trade. And we saw that with the likes of Te Koti, with a number of his own ships up into 1860, exporting produce around the country and overseas.
At what period did the pressure for more land sales start to create pressure on the relationship between Rongowhakata, Waerenga-a-Hika and the Pākehā in the area?
Yeah, it's around the same time that it took over the rest of the country, to be honest. And so the activities in the north that led to Ruapekapeka, the activities in the Waikato with the building of Great South Road, and leading into the Waikato and the invasion at Rangiriri through to Aowhia and Rangi-Aowhia and also Orake, at the same time in Taranaki. And so all of those pressures were happening around the motu, breaking into Tauranga, breaking into Opotiki and Te Rata, breaking into Tairāwhiti. And there's a description of the civil wars that were taking place amongst tribes at the same time. And it was no different that led on to what was happening within Tūranga here. And it's very clear that we've got flat lands close to river, and a lot of our early business was upriver, not only out in the bay here, access to the sea. And so like Opotiki, like Tauranga, it was seen as a great trading opportunity. And so, ours here in Tūranga just flowed on with the activity that was being done in other areas, and the drive by the New Zealand company in particular for land acquisition, because there was an opportunity to buy low and then flick it on at higher prices. So a lot of speculation was taking place at that time across the country, and we were no different here.
And at that time, they say refugees is how they're described, Paimariri refugees or people coming from the west who were looking for refuge, a home perhaps. Some might say that they were bringing the word of Paimariri to your communities. How would you describe that period of time and what was happening there?
Yeah, I think there's two things to describe. The first thing is that the religion, Paimariri, is like any other religion. It's an excellent religion. The only experience I have is particularly in Tainui, where my wife and her people are Paimariri. And so I just wanted to make that comment first. The second thing is that people describe ho-ho. And for I, who know the Paimariri karakia, it ends the rire ho, Paimariri. And so when they saw people praying around a nyupo, they took the view that they were ho-ho. And so the first thing is that the religion is good. Every religion that starts with love as its foundation is a good religion. How it's practiced is a separate matter. And so a lot of things have been done, whether you're Anglican or Catholic, a lot of good things have been done in the name of Christianity, but the reality is the actions don't align with the actual word. And so the religion of Paimariri is a good religion. That's the first thing. The second thing is that advocates took their view of the world around to others, no different to what Jesus and his disciples did. They believed in their word and they took their word around. And with every religion, you have those that take a different approach to the implementation. And so you have some followers that took a more aggressive form of advocating. And it got, combined with what people were seeing at the time. And they were seeing this thirst for land and power within their own regions. And they said, okay, well, this may be an opportunity for us to look at how we can strengthen ourselves. And religion like that has been a godsend, literally, whether you're talking about the people within the stories of the Israelites, or you're talking about Te Kōti and his coming back from the Chathams. There was no different to the people in that time as saying, okay, we see this thing coming. We're not too sure about how it's going to unfold, but we know that we need to look at a better way. And so you had people preaching a better way, and some people saying, okay, that's something that we need to take on board.
It's described, Paimariri, by Governor Gray as a fanatical sect, and some would say that they use that as the excuse to come into the affairs of Te Ranga Māori. What are your thoughts around that, around the way it's been described?
Yeah, the reality is that where the colonials have an agenda, they will find any excuse to justify the actions that they took. Whether that be, like I say, the invasion of Waikato and the building of the Great South Road, and the declarations that they made for people to say you're either with us or you're against us. That's the way that they portray things to do, to justify their actions. And so certainly that's the view that they painted. That's the reason why McLean reached out to other soldiers of other tribes for support for the battle that took place at Waerenga-a-Hika. It's also why some rangatira put their support behind the stand at Waerenga-a-Hika. because they wanted to actually send a message that we don't want this type of activity, and we're talking about the colonial activity taking place within our region. So there was the standing of the Union Jack and the removal of the Union Jack, and then the standing again of the Union Jack in this area. So you had chiefs like Raharuhi Rukupo, who was very much about mana motuhake, and ensuring that our way of life continued here in Tūranga. And you had others that aligned with not necessarily the Crown perspective, but with the perspective that disruption here in Tūranga could spill out into the wider East Coast region. And accordingly, some of our whanaunga, some of our rangatira took a different approach of fighting for their beliefs, but at the same time fighting alongside the Crown. But they weren't fighting for the Crown, they were fighting for their beliefs and protecting their beliefs and ensuring no disruption to how they ran their lives in their area.
Interesting. And I wondered, I'm going to ask you this question now, the relationship between Ngāti Porou and the Crown. How do you perceive that at the time? I mean, we're thinking in 1865, not 2025.
Yeah, I'm a firm believer that we have many instances of where our people fought against the Crown and some fought for the Crown. And every tribe has these stories. I go to Pokai in the Hora Hora area, and I hear about Te Whioro and others, and I hear the stories of King Tawhiao and others that fought. And the descendants have different views of the roles that their ancestors played. And so it's, firstly, there's two elements. It's unwise to judge 160 years later the views and activities of different rangatira. That's the first point. The second thing is that I can talk about those rangatira, whether it be Ropata Waha Waha or Henare Portai, because they were fighting for their kaupapa. They weren't necessarily fighting for the Crown, and we understand that. And when you go through treaty settlement processes, all of your activities are focused on the Crown. You're unable to notify or note in your historical account the names of other iwi. And that's deliberate because you're focusing on the breaches of the Crown of Te Tiriti or Waitangi. Did parts of Ngāti Porou fight against hapu and iwi of Tūranga Nui a Kiwa? The answer is yes. Did parts of Ngāti Porou pursue and fight against Te Kōti? The answer is yes. Did parts of Ngāti Porou fight within Te Rohe Pōtai or Tūhoi and cause destruction there? The answer is yes. So those are all parts of history, but mine is to say that when you look at those leaders of those hapu within Ngāti Porou, they were fighting for their kaupapa, not necessarily for the Crown's kaupapa. And like I say, within Tūranga, because of the dynamics of that time, the non-acceptance, there was no 100% acceptance of the Crown and its activities within this region. There were fears that a internal civil war could erupt here and then spill out to other regions, including Ngāti Porou, who had just been through their own civil war process leading up to Waerenga-a-Hika. So my firm view is that those rangatira of Ngāti Porou were fighting for the best interests of Ngāti Porou, that they fought with the Crown was a mechanism by which they could achieve their objectives.
Nonetheless, Mokena Kōhere puts a Union Jack up on Kaiti Hill. How might that have been viewed by your rangatira at the time?
Yeah, so our rangatira includes the likes of Hirini Tikani, and there wasn't agreement in that process. It certainly wasn't viewed by Raharuhi Rukupo in that same light as well, so he wasn't in favour of that. And I can say that, like with every tribe and hapu, there were mixed views, but I would say that the large majority didn't support that action. And so you have Mokina Kōhere, you have Rōpata Wahawaha, and Rōpata Wahawaha had been at one time enslaved by Rongo Whakaata. And so he had good reason to fight in this region for Ngāti Porou purposes or for his hapu of Ngāti Porou.
At Waerenga-a-Hika yesterday, multiple karakia, different hāhi. What is the whakapapa of those Christian faiths here? Mihinare, was that the chosen denomination early on? Do you think, and why was that?
Yeah, mihingare. Like I said, there's a lot of similarities in terms of whakapono, and you had those that were influence, that were, because the biggest influence or first impact was in the north for the missionaries. The second wave in terms of tairawhiti came from Piripi Taumatakura and his return back into the Ngāti Porou region. At that time still going through old battles. So he was a part of a battle in Te Whānau Apanui where a large war party of Ngāti Porou attacked Te Whānau Apanui. And then he set the laws for engagement in terms of the treatment of prisoners and the treatment of the dead and those types of activities. So you have those people coming back and spreading the word. Also, the reality is that you had some tribes that were the first adopters of the musket, and they had devastating effect on other tribes. And those other tribes had secured muskets, and there was the musket wars. And the reality is that there was a lead for a resolution, and that resolution came in two parts. The Declaration of Independence, he whakaputanga, in 1835, and Te Tiriti o Waitangi in 1840. So what I'm saying is that that was an opportunity for those that had been a part of the musket wars and could see the turning of the tide to ensure that there was peace rather than ongoing warfare.
The reason I ask that question is because we've been talking about Gray calling Pai Mariri a fanatical sect. You've got mihingare who've been here for 30, 40 years by this stage, embedded, and just down the road there's the mission station, Wharekarakia as well. How much of a part did religion play in the siege of Waerenga-a-Hika?
Yeah, I'd say that it was influential, but it wasn't a large part, because I think at that time the rangatira still had the sway in terms of the direction that the people took as a whole. So I guess what I was alluding to earlier is that there were some rules of engagement that were influenced by Christianity, and particularly mihingare. And Piripi Taumatakura was a large part of that. But in relation to the decision making at the time, that was down to the rangatira of those hapu that were the decision makers at that time. Some chose to stand at Waerenga-a-Hika, some chose not to stand at Waerenga-a-Hika, some chose to fight with the Crown. And that was highlighted yesterday in the kōrero that came through as well.
And so through the letters and records and kōrero that Nikki has provided, there doesn't appear to have been an appetite for war at Waerenga-a-Hika, yet there's this suggestion by the Crown that you're harbouring rebels or Pai Mariri refugees, and you actually send them out first and foremost, and they find their way back. But what do you think the motivation for that attack was?
All the motivation comes from the Crown, and the Crown wanting to control, and the Crown putting in the infrastructure to ensure that it can control. And the best thing for them is to move people through through war, disestablish, remove people, remove their power base, which is their land, and that was the model that they'd used in Waikato, in Taranaki, in Tauranga Moana, in Opotiki, and it was the same model that they used here. And so everything they'd done previously, they were just gearing up for their opportunity to do it here, and they did it here.
And we can read on New Zealand history and things like that, lots and lots of letters and statements on behalf of those colonial soldiers and Maclean and the rest of them. But through the research that that your iwi have done, you know, we can see that there were letters that were sent, there were ultimatums from the colonial troops to your people to do A, B, C and D, in which they did most of those, and actually sent a letter. Raharuhi Rukupo sent the letter to ask, why are you coming at us? You know, why do you want to come to war with us and come and meet with us? None of that was listened to, and in fact they just actioned the next day. When you reflect on that 160 years ago, how do you feel about that? What goes through your mind in terms of the way that your people acted and how the Crown acted?
Yeah, I guess the key thing for me is that we learn the lessons of the past. We need to be more unified today. The government of today, to be honest, is no different to the colonial powers of those times. The things that are being done today to our language, to our health, and to our foreshore and seabed, that's again what the colonials were doing to us 160 years ago. And so my focus is to ensure that we learn the lessons of the past. Our strength was in our hapu, but the reality is today it's more iwi, and we need to take a combined approach. But the combined approach needs to ensure that our whānau are strong, our hapu are strong, and then we have a strong iwi. And so if I could transport myself back to that time, I would ask our people to take a united approach rather than the mana of different hapu siding one way and the mana of different hapu siding the other way. The reality of that time is that the tide of colonisation was washing over the country, and it was inevitably going to wash over this area. You had some innovators, from my perspective, like Wipere that said we've got to consolidate our land. You had those in Mangatu that took the same approach, and so they were far and few between, to be honest. And then the rest couldn't stem the tide of colonisation, and some thrived in it, others didn't. And those that didn't were the ones that were shipped in 3 ships and moved over to Rekohu Wharekauti, Chatham Islands, and then came back to find that the bulk of their lands had been removed from their ahika. And so, like I say, some were seen as loyal, some were seen as rebels, and it was a deliberate process, and it's a divide and rule process. So for me, it's about learning the lessons of the past and ensuring in this age, 160 years, that we do things different than what was done at those times. Initially,
the Crown troops were going to another pa, a pa which we understand now was probably more of a fighting pa, less Waerenga-a-Hika. And those 800 that were in Waerenga-a-Hika, did they stand a chance?
Not really. Yeah, not really. You've been out there. It's not the most formidable site. And even though, like every traditional pa, you have an escape route, the reality is that it wasn't built for fighting. Having said that, even some of our fighting pa, like Ngātapa, where Te Kōti eventually went to, once the infrastructure of the colonials was put in place and sheer numbers and sheer technology was put in place, we didn't stand a chance. We stood a chance if we were united, but the reality is that that time we weren't united. There were some that were in favour of the Crown and some that were fighting against the Crown. And so the numbers and the technologies were against us. The only time that we stood a chance was the guerrilla warfare tactics that Te Koti took initially. But then again, in areas where he was defeated, he was defeated badly, whether it be in the Tuwharetoa area or other parts. That he lived is because of those guerrilla war tactics, firstly, and secondly, the aroha of Ngāti Maniapoto and the leaders of that time that allowed him and his people to live there for over a decade.
Coming back to Waerenga-a-Hika, after the first day, Anaru Matete brings Rongo Whakaata reinforcements. And 34 are killed. It's a heavy exchange of gunfire. Does that tell you that perhaps, you know, the likes of Rukupo were waiting for a response from the government? They weren't quite ready?
Yeah, it's a part of that divide and rule. And you did have Rukupo that was trying to give peace a chance and trying to give mana to mana a chance. But that wasn't the strategy of the colonial. It wasn't the strategy of McLean. It was basically to install their view of order into this district, and they wanted to make a big showing, and Waerenga-a-Hika was the opportunity to make that big showing. But they've done that in every region. You know, in Tauranga you can talk about Puke Hina and Gate Pa, and then eventually Te Ranga. Where it was a different story, you know, and so that's the same here, but they struck one big formidable blow in 1865, and it wasn't until the whakarau under Te Koti came back that a different approach was taken.
The night before, a few hundred escaped through the back of the pa, e ora ana tō iwi I tēnei rā, I tērā. But on the day, around 400 men, women and children surrendered or were arrested and deported. What were they going to at Rēkohu, Wharekauri? What might have been their thoughts?
Yeah, there was a mixture of people deported to Wharekauri. So it wasn't all those involved directly in Waerenga-a-Hika. It was those that the government said at that time were rebels, and that included Te Koti, not in the pa, working with the government forces at that time. And so you had those people that were basically tried, well, deported without any trial really, you know. So they were said to have been rebels and then labelled as such and then issued with the punishment of deportation over 3 months, 4 months, 3 boatloads that went predominantly out of Napier. And you had pleas that were made to say, hey, I haven't been tried for any rebel activity. And so, yeah, I think it was approximately 170 people over those 3 boatloads that were shipped off without any trial. And so that's a part of the colonial machinery. That's a part of colonisation. And that's what those people were subjected to.
It's reported that 40% of those arrested made up the Aitanga Mahaki at the time. It's like nearly half of your iwi. What legacy, what impact did that have on your iwi?
Yeah, it had a huge impact. So I was blessed to live in the time of Rutene Irwin. He was in his 90s when he died. I went around to all of our living pakeke at that time in 2015, 16, and I asked them if they would board a flight to Wharekauri, and Rutene was one. Uncle Buddy Smith was another. Auntie Teringa Mau Tamanui was another. They were all of our leading pakeke of that time, and they've all passed since. So I went to see them and said, look, I'd like us all to get on a Chatham's Air charter plane, fly over there for the 150th anniversary. Because King Tuheitia had been a part of our commemorations in 2015, he sent his spokesman over with us, Rahui Papa, who came with us in 2016. And it was emotional because Rutene Uwan spoke about his grandmother, who had been a part of those that were deported and imprisoned on Wharekauti. And so he spoke about hearing her cry nearly every night, and it did impact on him, you know. And then there were others from our different pa that were a part of that waihere. So the Taihuka whānau were very much a part of that. And so yesterday at Waerenga-a-Hika we had all the images, and a lot of those images were people that were actually taken over to Wharekauti. Yeah, so Pehi Mana Taihuka, Mātinga Taihuka, all those ones were actually from Waihirere, and their photos were there at the monument at Waerenga-a-Hika. So it's had a big influence, and I've seen someone like Rutene Uwan, where he spoke about his grandmother crying nearly every night about the way they were treated, being at Wharekauti, coming back, having nothing when they came back, and then the fighting that took place after they came back, and then struggling to live, you know. So it was real, and it set our people back, in all honesty. And then I've seen, you know, like the likes of Waihirere, and the Taihuka whānau that were very much a part of that, and those whānau telling their stories as well. So well captured through the Waitangi Tribunal process. But I was just privileged to be a part of those pakeke when we took them back to Riekohu, and we're hosted by the Moriori people there, Maui Solomon and his whānau. We were blessed to have the likes of Stan Pardo, who is really one of our historians for Rongo Whakaata and one of our negotiators for Rongo Whakaata, and for him to tell the stories there. To have Maui Solomon talking about their oral history of the recount of when the people from Tūranga were taken over there. And then the images of those that were waiting for the boat to take them over to Riekohu, Wharekauti, and the images that inspired our local artist Tai Kerekere when he saw them in their blankets, and to have a blanket created specifically for Waerenga-a-Hika. So the impacts today have been profound. The hardest part is our exhibition ran parallel with Waerenga-a-Hika commemorations, and the name of that is Hoho Te Rongo. And the reality is, and I can say this with all honesty, is I go to our ringatu rā every month, and our pautikanga Wirangi Pera will openly say, you know, e tahi o koutou ngā kaurua ki te kaupapa o te whakapono. Some of you, you know, you're uncertain about whakapono. I'm one of those. So I'm in there, and I'm 100% when I'm in there. But when I leave the rā on the 12th, I don't turn the other cheek. I'm geared for war, and I'm geared with fighting with every system that I have. I learnt in the law school for this day, where we fight for the proper recognition of our people. I've sat with Ngāti Oneone in the Wahapu here for the repossession of their lands. So I'm not a good disciple in that respect, is that I'm more a disciple of Tamahai, and I'm the one that people call on when there needs to be a battle, and you need someone fearless in that respect. So there's others that lead our karakia, there's others that lead our manaakitanga, and I really lead the war strategies today and use the Pākehā system against itself. And so all of those came because of a profound impact that history has had on us. I support the kaupapa of Aotearoa. I'm just not ready to complete that process until we've completed our settlement. And when we complete our settlement and there is true apology, then there will be true forgiveness. But at that moment, I'm not the exemplar of Christianity. I'm there to get a kaupapa done for our people. And Waerenga-a-Hika is a key driver for us, and ensuring that Māori mai, Pākehā mai don't forget what happened to our people at Waerenga-a-Hika, what happened to our people at Wharekauri, what happened to our people at Matawhero, what happened to our people at Ngātapa, what happened to our people through Te Rohe Pōtai o Tūhoe, what happened to our people in Tūwharetoa, so that that is understood and that is never forgotten.
Tēnā koe. When they returned, as you said, the whakarau, all their lands had been partitioned up and given away. And as Nick Tupara said, some of those people played in his rugby team and went to school with him. Do you think those whānau out there that are now living on the lands of Waerenga-a-Hika whānau are aware of the whakapapa, the history to their whenua and to their what they've got?
It's easy to pick them because they got Pākehā names, you know. So Ormond, right across to Ārai, was 50,000 acres of confiscation. Beautiful flat lands, predominantly Pākehā owned. And so there are a few lands amongst that. Wipere lands are amongst that. Te Whānau Taupara are amongst that. But the bulk of the lands are owned by Pākehā today. So that's how you destabilise a people, is that you take their power base, and the power base of all of us, Indigenous people, is our land. And then you attack the other symbols or the other pillars of our identity, the reo and everything else. And so I don't think people have a true appreciation of the impacts of colonisation on our people. And I am very, well, happy is not the word, but thankful for those schools that said, despite the provision in the Act to give effect to the Tiriti o Waitangi being removed, they are still going to operate in accordance with giving effect to Te Tiriti o Waitangi, because what that means is that they give effect to our stories. They give effect to our culture. And within tūranga, that's critical for us. You know, we've had the 250th anniversary of the coming of Captain Cook to these lands. And the story told in the year 250 was different to the story that was told in year 200. And so we are finding our voice in these spaces in a way that we've never had recognised before. All of that is important to make sure that we tell the story, but equally important, and I support it even though I'm not at the moment living it, is the ho te rongo. So there's got to be time that ka whakamoea ngā raru o mua no atu kia ngā whakamua te iwi. So even though I don't really adhere to ho te rongo, when we have true reconciliation, that's when I'll adhere to that. And we need to move forward as well, but never forget.
Crown legislation will ensure that you never get those lands back, because treaty settlements never get private land. But in 2025, rather than the gun or the musket, what is your weapon of choice in terms of turning that kind of story around?
My weapon of choice is the law. My weapon of choice is people power. But you've got to have fearless people power. And so when Ngāti Oneone made the decision that the way they were being treated by the port and the owner of the port, Trust Tairāwhiti, together with our local government, they made a decision to hikoi. They made a decision to occupy, they made a decision to repossess, and they made a decision to keep their fire burning until the outcome that they were satisfied with. That took 174 days. That's a miracle, really, in today's times. But they were able to get an outcome where the land beside their urupa, where Hirini Tikani is buried, has been now legally returned to them. That was all they were asking for. They are now in a position where pūtea has been made available to allow them to buy other lands. And so, just like in Waikato, whenua reruatu, whenua hoki mai, that's our main focus. It's taken us 165 years to get to this point. It'll take us another 165 years to get to the restoration of our lands and of our people. And so we play a small role in the bigger picture, but we're very clear on the vision of ensuring the total restoration of our people and our lands.
We spoke earlier about the importance of your people, our people, knowing their waiata, knowing their language, being able to hui. How much of a part is that for Waerenga-a-Hika, rongo whakaata at this time?
Yeah, so it's critical that for any group like Te Waerenga-a-Hika that hasn't settled, that you keep connected to our people. And so keeping connected to our people in the last 5 years has been about significant events like this and bringing our people together. And so the greatest thing that thrilled me was seeing ngai tā manuhiri, te whānau a kai, ngāri ki kai pūtahi, te Waerenga-a-Hika, with rongo whakaata all standing together for common kaupapa. Anō te āhua, te ātāhua, te āhua reko, te nohotahi, o ngā tuakana me ngā taina I raro te whakarokotahi. It's a thing of beauty to see our people standing together. So that was the best and greatest thing, firstly. Secondly, to be able to stand together, you need to be able to stand with our reo, stand with our maurako, stand with our kapahaka, stand with our waiata. And we've put energy into doing that. And so we're very thankful that we've had the likes of Tāpeta Wehi, Vicky Wehi, Pemia Wehi, Ruth Smith contributing, Morihu Pewhairangi, contributing towards the learning of our mōtetia. Because sometimes you go away as a people and you all know different songs, but you don't know the same songs. And so we wanted to ensure that we could create the same songs for us. Secondly, we've had a group leading te reo, and so very blessed to have Mātai Smith and Ruth Smith that have led our reo, not only in terms of te mātāwai, but supporting toi tū te reo. So that's been important. Very blessed to have Vicky Wehi that led our pakeke. And so we have a kapa called Te Kura o Mahaki, and that kapa is there for our pakeke. And they did their first stand at our local kapahaka competitions earlier this year, Tamararo. So that's another unifier for our people. But also we've been blessed that Te Ariki Nui Kuini Ngāwai Hono i te Pō has agreed that we hold a paukai here in Te Tairāwhiti in Tūranganui-a-Kiwa. And so the first one is 14th of November 2026. And so that's another unifying factor. So whereas some of our iwi hapu may be in court against each other on tribunal issues, claims issues, this is something that we're all in for. So we were all in for Waerenga-a-Hika, and we'll all be in for the paukai. And with that in mind, it'll bring our people together. And so those are cornerstones of ensuring that we keep connected to our people. They're cornerstones in terms of ensuring that who we are continues, and they're cornerstones to build upon so that we're not dependent on funding. So we haven't had a settlement, and yet we're doing all these activities. We had a group go to Osaka, Japan, on a trade mission. We had a group that went to Sydney to have connection with our people over there. The biggest population outside the country is in Australia. We had a group that went to Brazil for the climate change, so we had 3 of our people as a part of that contingent. And we had a group of artists go up to Seattle, Washington for a dual purpose of supporting our commemorative blanket being made, but also to highlight the relationships that we have with the tribes of that area of Seattle, Washington. So we're doing a lot of activities there about us keeping grounded and feeling good, but building people power. So we don't have a lot of physical assets in terms of buildings and other businesses outside fisheries, but what we do have is a great investment in our own people. So it's going to be our people that lead the future, young and old. So we have a powerful rangatahi crew led by Niki Pewhairangi and others. And so that's where all our investment is in our people, so that we build that resilience, we build that fearlessness, and we're better equipped to deal with the changes that government met out to us. But we just need to be strong in ourselves. That's the biggest thing that I preach to our people, is being strong in ourselves, backing ourselves. And like we showed in Cyclone Gabriel, ain't no one else coming to rescue us, and we've got to make ourselves strong, and we've got to be ready for the future. And I'm confident we're on the right path with what we're doing.
I wonder, in 2025, what is the relationship between Pākehā from Turanga and the iwi of Turanga?
I would say that on a whole we have a positive relationship, not only with local government, and it was good to see the mayor there yesterday in Rahit, but also the wider community. So it was good to see Jeremy Mua. They're one of the powerhouse families of this community. Good to see him there, the previous owners of the Gisborne Herald, etc. I know and adore his parents, and so it was good to see him there yesterday. We have a lot of business community relationships as well, so the likes of Leaderbrand and others that we're working with well. So Te Aitanga Mahaki is Mangatu. Te Aitanga Mahaki is Te Whānau Taupara and the orchards that you see opposite the Waerenga-a-Hika site. And we have a lot of land developments. We work well with Ag First, a local family, or family grouping I should say, that we work with. So in terms of the circles that I walk in, I don't walk in all circles, but in the business, local government, we have good relationships with our local community. I think there's a realisation that we're better together, and that no one's going to conquer the world alone. We have some really great outstanding industries within this area, the likes of Leaderbrand, Poltron and others, and we know that we have key ingredients. We have the land, we have the people, and we just need to ensure in that relationship that we're not the cheap labour component of a thriving business. And so on those circles that I walk in, the relationships are positive. Where we take action that not necessarily the whole community agrees with, we open ourselves in a way to ensure that we can have a dialogue. And so when we repossessed our land on Hirani Street next to our cemetery, Ngāti Onioni opened the doors and said, look, you're welcome anytime to come by the fire and have a discussion. And some of the local community took that up. So yeah, I'd say on a whole it's positive. I think that's reflected in the local government elections as well. So not only did we retain our Māori wards, I would say that the majority of council are in support of the initiatives that we're taking that benefit our community. I haven't been able to say that with confidence for a long time, but seeing the makeup of the Gisborne District Council now, seeing that we have the Deputy Mayor position, and that it took tangata tiriti and Pākehā voters to get our Māori ward over the line, is a positive sign. So yeah, I'm very positive about the relationships that we have. There's a lot of work to be done in terms of the educational system and making sure that our stories are told. But, 10 years on from where we were in the 150th commemorations, I think we're in a better space, but still a lot of work to be done.
Tell us about the significance of Te Hau ki Tūranga.
Yeah, Te Hau ki Tūranga is a part of that whole government approach at that time of ensuring that where they could take land, where they could take artefacts, then they did. And so I've been blessed to be the lead negotiator for rongo whakaata as well. And so in 2011, when we moved through the settlement process, the return of Te Hau ki Tūranga was a bottom line for the rongo whakaata people. And we just need to make a distinction between the original parts and those that were created. And so there was parts that were created, some parts that were taken from elsewhere, like Te Poho Rawiri, the original house, and some parts that make up the treaty settlement. And so the house stood at Ora Kaiapu, and approaches were made to buy it. And then it was taken into the museum system. And then it was changed through that process to adapt to the museum environment. That meant cutting off the legs and all those types of things that they did to make things fit into their spaces. But I can say that now rongo whakaata has a positive relationship with Te Hau ki Tūranga, positive relationship with Te Papa Tongarewa, but the aspirations of the return of the house, like we've seen with Mātātua Whare and Whakatane, hasn't been achieved yet. And so there's a lot of thinking and strategy that rongo whakaata is working with. We were blessed some years ago that Chris Finlayson was both the Te Tiriti o Waitangi Minister and also Minister for Culture and Heritage. So he provided funding that enabled a feasibility study to be undertaken. And so there's still processes to be worked through in terms of that feasibility, but the government accepted and apologised for the theft of that taonga. They made amends to ensure that the ownership is transferred back to rongo whakaata, and they provided some resourcing in terms of the feasibility of having the whare returned back to Tūranga.
Does that make you feel hopeful?
No, not really. The government needs to fulfil the return. So with Mātātua Whare, they provided a capital base to enable the return of that whare with the ongoing operations with the Ngāti Awa people. And so it's a job that hasn't been completed. It is in the hands of rongo whakaata, but equally the government needs to provide its support. In today's dollars, that's around 20 to 30 million to do the right thing by that whare. Because it's either going to go back onto the land and protected like Mātātua Whare is, or the people may decide that it get returned to a whare taonga type environment like it's in now. And so the feasibility study that was carried out around 2014 really identified the options, but we're 11 years on. And so I think that any government that wants to be serious about completing this needs to stump up with the resourcing to complete that process. For rongo whakaata, it will be a part of a bigger kaupapa, because if you're going to take on the responsibility of a whare, you've got to take on the responsibility of the ongoing maintenance and operations, and that's no easy feat. And we've seen with Mātātua Whare that if not for Ngāti Awa and their organisation, it would be a struggle for them maintaining their whare.
What's its connection, Te Hau ki Tūranga, to Waerenga-a-Hika?
I guess the main connection is through Rukupo. And so Rukupo was, not only a rangatira in terms of his hapu, but a rangatira in terms of his creativity, and that's reflected in Te Hau ki Tūranga. So that connection the connection to whakapapa, the connection to whakairo, the connection to whenua, they all go together. And when one's disrupted, it affects the lot. And so the major disruptions that took place in 1865 and subsequently and prior had profound effects and have led to two settlements within Waerenga-a-Hika so far that all draw on the same history. So Ngai Tā Manuheri's draw on the Waerenga-a-Hika disruption. Rongo Whakaata drew on the Rongo Whakaata disruption. Te whānau kai, Ngāi Riki, Kai Pūtahi and Te Aitanga Mahaki will draw on that same disruption. We've been through 8 court cases and we've got the Supreme Court to still go and we'll hopefully get a result through the Supreme Court. If not, then we'll be back in the Waitangi Tribunal again. And so I was here in 1992 when we filed our claims, 1991, 1992. I travelled with our chairman at that time to meet with Eddie Jury to talk about accelerating the research, and that was done through Professor Alan Ward from Gisborne here and the Waitangi Tribunal. That led to our hearings in the year 2000. And then I was here in 2006 as we worked through the agreement in principle. And then that was led by the various claimant groups to 2008, agreement in principle. And then 2011, when the settlements for Tā Manuheri and Rongo Whakaata took place. So I've been the lead negotiator of Te Aitanga Mahaki for the past 14 years. And the only reason why I was selected was because I was young enough to endure and get to the end. And so the rangatira of that time, the likes of John Ruru has passed on, Ru Te Neuwen has passed on. And I was 45 when I was selected. I'm 59 now, and I expect in the next decade that we'll get a resolution. And so that's one of my last major commitments in my life, is to get that settlement completed, embedded, and why I'm investing in our people now, so that they can thrive without the dependence on a treaty or Waitangi settlement for breaches by the Crown. So I'm trying to build the resilience in our people, because I've seen many settlements that have become the focal point for tribes and have led to unnecessary internal sparring. So if we grow the right leadership now, we'll be in a better position for when we do settle, but we won't be dependent on the settlement.
When you were taking that settlement through, and particularly around Te Hauki Tūranga, those old people would have given evidence about it. How would they have viewed the confiscation and dismantling of that whare?
Yeah, it was a part of the total destruction of the people at that time, and the profound emotional impacts that it had. We had some outstanding leaders during that time that gave evidence. Henry Sunderland, who features in the Ngā Morehu book. We had Rapiata Ria Senior, who was a great advocate on behalf of Rongo Whakaata. And, you know, those people, the mamae was real for them when they expressed their whakaaro, firstly in their written evidence, and then subsequently in the evidence that they gave before the tribunal, through to the tribunal report being issued. I think it was 2004 when that had been when that was issued, and became the, I guess, foundation for the negotiations that took place with the Crown. So that's the Tūranga Tangata report that came out in 2004. And it aptly describes the whakaaro on Te Hauki Tūranga, the significant impacts on the people, because that leadership of Rukupo and his carving style for us in Tūranga was a game changer. You see in there a style that has been built on subsequently, but he was the innovator, and it's reflected in his works.
Most New Zealanders wouldn't realise that they've held a piece of it in their hands in the bill, where it's on the $10 note. Is that a painful symbol?
No, it's a symbol of pride, to be honest. So when the Reserve Bank were going through renewing notes, etc., they did approach families and tribes to see what their viewpoints were. And it was seen as a real opportunity to ensure that was preserved and captured. And so I remember the discussions with the Ngata family, and I remember the discussions with Rongo Whakaata at the time. And so they embraced it and said, okay, well, this is a way of making sure that our whare, our tipuna, in the case of Apirana Ngata, is not lost and is kept in the public purview now and forever.
Yesterday, 160 years, fantastic day. You talked about all those hapu coming together and performing as one, learning wānanga, all of things together. And did you feel the wairua? Did you feel how important that was yesterday did you get a moment to stop and witness?
Yeah, I was privileged that I saw the first coming together of them all on a week ago, Sunday morning. And yeah, I had a moment there where I thought, they've done it, because that was the first time the Maurako and the Hakapohiri people had come together, and it was seamless. And I was very proud to see all those different marae, all those different hapu, all those different iwi of tūranga in the mix of the karanga, in the mix of the Hakapohiri, in the mix of the Maurako. So I'm very appreciative of all the work that's been done by our people at different levels, those involved in the Maurako and hosting the 300 odd people that came from Ngāpuhi right through to Te Whānau Apanui to be a part of yesterday. And you would have seen all those parties working seamlessly together. So I was very proud, firstly, of their coming together. I was very proud of what they delivered, and I had the privilege to see that on Sunday. I was excited when the whare tūtaua, the 6 whare tūtaua came together with our own whare tūtaua, and they blended in on Friday, and again it was seamless, and you couldn't help feel the ihi, the wehi, the wana, not only during the pōheri, but whenever they had the opportunity to support a speaker or support an activity, they were there. Right through to afterwards, when they had their poroporaki session, I was just amazed that they could still jump around with such passion, and that was in such a hot day, so they were there from 8 o'clock. They did the hakapohiri at 10, and then at 1 o'clock they were still doing the haka to each other before they left the site. And so, it was an honour, to be honest. It was an honour and a privilege to be able to see that. And I think a lot of the coverage has done justice to the ihi, the wehi, the wana that those were there felt yesterday.
There were some empty seats on the other side. The Crown didn't come.
Yeah, I rang the Associate Minister of Housing and Minister of Conservation and Māori Development, Minister Pōtaka, just to check to see whether he was coming. To be honest, I was excited that they weren't coming because this is more about our people who died there. This is more about our people coming together. And this is more about our people and our community not forgetting what happened there. Because sometimes, in my view, and this is not a critique of any other commemoration, when the Crown turns up and becomes a focus on them, whereas yesterday for me, it was beautiful that it was a focus on us. It was a focus on those that died. It It was a focus on those photos of people connected to the site, the Mātinga, Taihuka and others that were put there at the feet of the monument. It was about the karakia for our telling of our story and excellent work that Niki Pewhairangi has done. It was our opportunity to show our creativity with respect to the blanket, the commemorative blanket that has been done for this event and won't be produced again. It was an opportunity for those that are connected through whakapapa, through genealogy and through battles, to come together and say, we understand and we share your pain. And so all of that was done by us. So I actually loved it that the Crown weren't there. We had initially invited Te Ariki Nui Queenie Ngā Waihono i te Pō, like we did with her father 10 years ago. Because we've been awarded a paukai and because Rangiriri was happening on the 21st of November, we went back to her directly and said, kei te pai, noho ake i te wā kāinga, hara mai a te rātou. So we approached Te Ariki Nui just to say, if you're happy, we would really like it that you stayed at home and came next year. And so she sent a note saying that she appreciated that approach. We know she's got a full schedule. And so we were blessed to have Tāne Te Koi and others of the whare tūtau or porotaka namatahi that were there on Friday and Saturday. And we recognised them as well. But no, I was very happy that no one from the Crown could make it because it became about us and that's how it should be.
Yesterday, hundreds of those hapu, those iwi that we were speaking about, together singing in unison, speaking wānanga, reflections, commemorations, all together on the same whenua, which has had such a huge impact on your people. What's the future look like?
Oh, I'm really excited about the future. I'm excited because I see our rangatahi like Niki Pewhairangi. I see all those that were in the kapahaka and they are loyal to our kaupapa. And we know that we've got a paukai next year and we know that we'll have a paukai every year. And so we'll have an event that brings us together. We'll rotate the paukai around our 5 marae or 5 areas, starting with Te Poho o Rāwari next year. Then likely going into Waituhi and Pākohai and Te Whānua Kai, and then rotating around the other 3 marae and areas. We know that there'll be internal rotations as well, and so Waituhi and Te Rongopai are there. We have Waihirere and Tārere. We have Tākipu and Tāpui Hikitea. And then we have our marae out at Mangatu. So I'm excited because of the rangatahi. I'm excited because we're demonstrating that we can come together. In our hahi, we had a split for 39 years and Te Wairua Tapu stood alone to Te Hahi Ringatu. And in May of this year we agreed to come together. And so we have one rā together where Te Wairua Tapu and Te Hahi Ringatu are in the one place, and our name is Te Kotahitanga o Te Wairua Tapu me Te Hahi Ringatu o Te Tairāwhiti. And so we're working together in terms of our hahi. We're working together in terms of our marae coming together for common purposes. We're working together in terms of our mōtiatia so that we can sing with pride on our different marae. On different areas where some see themselves as hapu, others see them as iwi. Doesn't really matter because when they're holding the pai, they tell their story and we're there to support. So I'm excited by that. I'm excited by the ones that are coming home and hearing the call. The wehi whānau are coming back in force. Really blessed that Pemia lives at home, that Tāpete has come home, that Vicky has come home. And so they're really powerhouses in terms of influences. And so it's great that they've heeded the call because their mum and their dad were very strong. Ngā Pō and Pemia here within Te Aitanga Mahaki before they went to Tāmaki, but even in Tāmaki they'd come home and they'd support for big kaupapa, particularly around the kingitanga. So I'm excited for our rangatahi, I'm excited for our leadership. The key aspect, in my view, why yesterday was successful is because people have lanes and they stay in their lanes, and you only work with those people that are the lead of their lanes. And so the kitchen people looked after that side, the side people looked after their side. I looked after traffic because I could see which were the kaumātua that need to go certain parks, and then by seeing all the cars and the people I can see which ones that we need to recognise by providing a gift to later in the day. And then same with my chairman, he was on parking. Same with the chief executive of Tūranga Health, he was on the parking and moving cars once they came in. So I'm excited about our leadership. We don't always get things right, but we've got a leadership that has or runs a high trust model, and you need that in an iwi organisation. So I'm excited about our rangatahi, I'm excited about our leadership. I'm excited by the level of commitment that we have with our people, seeing all those people from different marae, different hapu, different iwi there standing together as one. So I'm excited by that. I'm excited that we have kaupapa like the Pokai, because my cousin and I, Tāpita Wehi, we were in Mahinarangi when the discussion of who would take the place of Kingi Tuheitia was held, and we supported the whakatau of the motu. And the Pokai was an opportunity for us to continue to show our unconditional support for her and the important role that she plays. And so we were very blessed at Wahipa in October to hear that we were successful with a Pokai. But that's not just a Pokai that was tono by a few, it was a tono by 5 marae working together as one. And so I'm excited by that. I'm excited by some of the activities that we're doing on the ground. Toi Tūtai Rāwhiti, where we've gone from 5 houses on average annually to now developing 50 houses per year annually, with our latest development being 150 houses by the Gisborne Hospital. I'm excited that we're putting our priorities in the right place. So 71% of our Māori mothers in Tai Rāwhiti are solo mums, and of those solo mums, 355 of them have children under 5, so they're under 25 themselves. Average age is 17 to 20 for our wahine Māori that are solo mums, and so we're putting our energy there for our own purposes, but it also has benefits from the Crown's social investment policy. And so we know that if we don't keep those tamariki at school to year 13, if they drop out at the age of 12, that they will cost the state $610,000 over a 12-year period. And so the social investment gives us an opportunity to invest in those families, move those tamariki to year 13 to further trades, to further education, to permanent jobs, and ensure those mums are supported to be in home ownership. So by the time they get to 45, they're not only employment, they own their house outright, and their kids are thriving. So if we can change our priorities and ensure that for me, every te aitanga mahaki tamariki that's at school, if they fail, our iwi has failed. And so we step up and we ensure that those tamariki succeed. And so I'm thankful that we've got a cohort of principals from Pātutahi out to Te Karaka Whatatutu that have said, no, we back that 100%. So we've got leadership that's actually putting our priorities in the right place and saying that we need to start with strengthening our families and start by strengthening our solo mums and our young tamariki and ensuring that they get the best start in life. And at the end of the day, the tribe needs to stand up. And if any of our kids failed, our tribe has failed. And so we need to make sure that our kids succeed. And so, for all those reasons, I'm absolutely optimistic and absolutely excited. It's never easy. Life isn't meant to be easy at times, and you just got to put in the hard work. But these types of events show that we can come together, and I have a lot of faith in particularly the leadership and the next generation. So like I said earlier, Nikki's 18. When it's the 200th anniversary, she'll be 58. I'm 59. and so I have every confidence that over the next 40 years she's going to go on and do outstanding things. And so that's the confidence I have in her generation, to be honest. But equally, we've got the Tāpeta Wehis, the Vicky Wehis, the Ruth Smiths, the Mātai Smiths and others that are this echelon of leadership. And then we've got the Pehi Mana Browns, those in the 70s to 80s that are really the guiding lights for us. And then we've got our Pautikanga at 95 years young in Waerenga-a-Hika Pera. And so that's why I say we've got good leadership. It's a high trust model. We're doing exciting things and we're keeping ourselves excited every day. And it keeps us focused on the outcome, which is really the well-being of our people.
You know, when we're out at Waerenga-a-Hika, people go to Rhythm and Vines, it's like lush and gorgeous and beautiful. It's where the Gisborne oranges come from. Is it hard to not feel resentful to those whānau, those descendants of the soldiers that were fortunate enough to take your land?
The reality is that we can't change the past. We've got to live here and we've got to make sure that we can do the best of what we do going forward. And that means that we've got to be pragmatic in terms of our approaches. And so I have no hesitation in saying that this government has done some of the most damaging decisions, or made some of the most damaging decisions that I've seen in my lifetime. And at the same time, we've worked with that same government to secure housing for our people. $45 million worth of investment going next to the Gisborne Hospital. That will be 150 homes. Equally, Shane Jones has come in and supported the development of 75 hectares of high-value horticulture lands within Tūranga and $11.5 million Crown contribution. So I can't change the past. I've got to be pragmatic. That if I turn my back on this government, I'm turning my back on the opportunities for my people. And so we pick our fights. So we're fighting in the Court of Appeal and appealing to the Supreme Court. But equally, where there's the opportunity to advance our people in terms of land development and housing, then I do. And so I don't progress with our local community with a chip on my shoulder, with resentment and with puhaihai. I focus pragmatically. But equally, in the heat of the battle, where people do take an approach that I find unsavoury, I do remind them how they got into their positions, how they used our people to get where they are today, and that we know that. And so I don't use that as an attack, I use that as a korowai just to remind people, just like when we did the Ngāti Oneone, and we reminded them the Poho Rawiri whare stood here. It was because of the port development that it was moved back there. But this is the land of Ngāti Oneone and where their whare stood. And so don't forget that.